afternoon. I'm Jill Rao, the Door County Clerk, and we are here today to talk about voting, the upcoming November election, absentee voting, and hopefully answer questions that people are wondering or asking.
And I'm Barb Grall. I work with Voter Service for the League of Women Voters, and our primary goal is to educate voters and to help them whenever they're having trouble finding information about voting, whether it be absentee ballots, registering to vote, whatever it is. But that's the primary goal of the League of Women Voters of Door County, everywhere.
So some of the questions that have come up lately, or have probably always come up for elections, how do I get an absentee ballot? Who do I contact? What's my best route to ask questions about voting? And the answer to that would be to contact your municipal clerk. Your municipal clerk is your town clerk, village clerk, or city clerk. So depending on where you live, in a township, a village, or a city, that's who you would contact. There are several ways to get that information. We have it listed on the county website. You could go to the myvote.wi.gov website and look it up. You could call the county clerk, who can direct you and help you, and also the league.
And the league actually has a dedicated phone, a number that you can call. I'll say it slowly: 920-495-6206. And somebody will be there to answer the phone, or somebody will pick it up, and they will answer questions. And if that's sort of not around the clock, don't try it at midnight. But if you're home in the evening and the county clerk's office is closed, you could call that number, which is 920-495-4206. And we also will help you with the myvote.gov. And if by chance your computer is giving you troubles, if you're willing to give us information, we'll type it into our pad and pop up who your clerk is or whatever you would like to know. The myvote.wi.gov gives lots of information, and so maybe later we'll have a chance to explain some of that. Back to absentee ballot, and when people ask you a question, one of the things people have asked us about, what happens if I send that ballot in and I think, uh-oh, I didn't have the witness, I wasn't sure if the witness put the address down of the witness. What should they do?
So clerks are generally checking when they receive those absentee ballots back, the certificate. They do review that before bringing those to election day. Many of the clerks will do their best to reach out to the voter, to contact them, to let them know that indeed you missed something on it. Or if the voter thinks that they've missed something, they should contact their clerk just to verify that the absentee ballot certificate was complete. If it's caught by the clerk, you will either get it back in the mail, potentially you will get a phone call from a clerk to please come into the office to complete it, or by letter, depending on what contact information that the clerk has, kind of determines how the voter would be contacted. But they are doing their best on the municipal end of things to make sure that those certificate envelopes are complete so that they can be counted on election day.
So absentee ballots, you mail in. I've had a lot of questions about something. What is the difference between early voting, when you go into your municipality office, or absentee voting?
So it's really all absentee voting. It just depends on the process used. Absentee voting by mail is where you will request a ballot and you will receive it by mail and can return it by mail as well, or could drop it off at a clerk's office or at a drop box if that municipality so had a drop box. Early voting, often referred to as early voting, is really absentee voting in person earlier than election day. So that will start on October 20th throughout the municipalities. Each clerk's office has hours. Some are by appointment, some are by office hours. And that advertisement just went in the paper, what those office hours were. It was advertised in the Door County Advocate this past Saturday, October 3rd. But again, if you have any questions, you can call your municipal clerk and they can certainly give you details about when that is available. So you will go into that office, what they refer to as early voting, but you will literally vote your ballot right there in the office. You are still going to put it in an absentee envelope and seal it and complete it just like you would have done if you would have received it by mail. Does not go through the machine. It is not counted or tallied until election day.
Okay, now if I go into early vote, I may think, oh, this is going to take forever. I don't even know what's on my ballot. How can I find out what's on my ballot ahead of time?
Sure, you can either call your municipal clerk and receive a sample ballot, or even better, if you have access to the internet, you can use the myvote.wi.gov website to look up what is coming up on your ballot and what you will be voting for on that ballot.
I don't know if I can do that. Okay, let's see if I can help you here. I'm on the MyVote website. All right, can you see what's on here?
No, we are getting quite a glare.
Okay, there is a point here that says what's on my ballot, and it's not going to come up.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
seeing
yeah,
a little
it
bit
is.
of it now.
Okay, what's on my ballot? And actually, it will tell you what's on your ballot, but it says search for my ballot. I have to put in my street address, the city address, and the zip code. As it turns out, in Door County, everybody has the same ballot. I don't believe there's anybody with a, oh, I take that back. There are 2 school referendums, but the presidential and the House of Representatives, the Assembly for the state, there are several county offices, but the only one that's contested is the treasurer's. And then we have what's called fair maps. And I wonder if I should bring that up and read that. That might be confusing.
Me too.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about if they made a mistake they think inside their ballot. Can they correct that, or is if they voted, even if they think, uh-oh, you know what, I didn't vote for somebody, or maybe I double voted, or now that I think about it, I think I made a mistake.
Absolutely. So mistakes can be corrected. You have 3 chances, just as you would on election day. So you can receive up to 3 ballots to correct a mistake. If the 3rd ballot is still a mistake, you're kind of out at that point. But if you've received your ballot, you've marked it in error for some reason, you simply need to contact your municipal clerk again and have them send out a 2nd ballot. You will notice on your outer envelope for returning the ballot, it will say number 2. That is to keep track on the end of the municipality that they've issued 2 ballots and that what they're receiving back, 1 or 2. And so as to not count the vote twice. So you can do that at home. You've got it at home. You've got it through the mail. You can correct it that way with a 2nd ballot, up to 3. If you've sent it in and you realize or you remember that something isn't right, or maybe you've changed your mind, you certainly can request a 2nd ballot as well. And the municipal clerk would then, if that 2nd ballot is received, that 1st ballot is somewhat destroyed. It's marked and set aside as in being that it's spoiled. So they kind of rip that envelope to know that number 1 is spoiled and number 2 will be counted.
Okay, so that if you really do, that doesn't happen very often, does it?
It generally does not when it comes to absentee voting, more so on election day and more so for probably the straight ticket election, so the August election. But every now and then we get something that, oops, I marked the wrong thing, or the pen fell and put a dot where it shouldn't have, and so that you can spoil a ballot on election day as well. Kind of the same process. They rip that about 3/4 of the way through and issue you a new ballot.
Okay, what happens, I know sometimes when you feed the ballot in, it won't take it. Why is that?
So we have super fantastic voting machines that are very, very particular, which is a wonderful, great thing. And it notices some things on there that you might not think, the human eye probably doesn't notice. And that could just be a simple mark that the pen, marked a spot and it is picking up a mark that it doesn't recognize. It's not in the right spot. And so the machine will say, I can't read it. If you're at the polls, that would be a spoiled ballot. You could get another one and remark it. If it was an absentee ballot that came in and that happened, two poll workers would actually remake that ballot. So there are two poll workers. One reads what's on the original ballot, and one marks a duplicated ballot. And they both initial that, and they write their reasons, and they track all of that in their incident logs, so that if there's any question of what happened, they can go back and look at that. And also, the original ballot is marked 1, and the duplicate ballot is marked 1. So very much transparency there that can be observed. It's done out in the public where people are voting and watching.
I was an election observer one year and actually heard that happen, where they said out loud to everybody that was there, we have a ballot that's being rejected, we are going to redo the ballot for that person. And I didn't really understand what was going on, but they just said it to everybody who was in the room.
Yes.
That is what was going on.
Yep,
That's
that is out in the open, and an easy process, and everything is marked and tracked and written down so that, again, it can be noted why it was remade.
I finally connected with the Wi-Fi here again. The referendum in Door County, and Door County is not the only county that has this. This is an advisory referendum, which means it tells the will of our county, and that information goes to the state legislature. And the referendum reads, should the Wisconsin legislature create a nonpartisan procedure for the preparation of legislative and congressional district plans and maps? Now, nonpartisan means that it's made up of people from both political parties, not just one. And the answer to that is either yes or no. And what they're trying to do is get a feeling if people would like a group of people to draw the maps for districts. And Wisconsin has 8 congressional districts, that's correct. And or should they let the party that is in power, that wins the election, draw the maps? Now that's what's been happening for very many years. It usually ends up in the courts. The Democrats and the Republicans are both guilty of this, and this is an effort, the Fairmax Group, to have a People's Committee take care of this. Then it would go to the legislature to be okayed. Many people call it the Iowa method. They have done it forever, not forever, for many years. So that is on the ballot along with the election of different candidates. I have had a lot of questions or discussions. I don't think they're questions so much, is that people are worried about this election observer thing, that they hear that people are going to be closely observed, the voting thing, and somebody said to me, but I thought my ballot was private, that nobody could be looking over my shoulder. And I assured the person it was, but I think Wisconsin has regulations, don't they, on how that's handled. Could you explain that so people understand that the ballot really is private?
Yep, the voting process is definitely private. An observer can come to the polling location and they can observe the process, not the voting per se over your shoulder. So Wisconsin permits individuals to observe the voting and the election administration process. There is going to be an area that the observers are to sit, and that is relatively close to your check-in tables, your registration tables, and that is set out by the municipal clerk. They'll usually have some chairs set out for observers to come and watch the process. They need to be within hearing distance, so to hear people's names and addresses as they state them, as they show their photo IDs and they get their ballot. They are just observing that process, registration process. They are asked that they wear a name tag. They're going to ask to be signed in. Generally, the chief election inspector is going to be the one that will handle any observers coming. They are there to observe, not interrupt the process or the flow of election day. And there is no rhyme or reason to, you can be an observer. You don't have to be affiliated with any one particular party or group or whatever. You are just there to observe the process, and they can observe from start to finish. So even after the polls close and the counting and tallying and everything is going on, they are welcome to watch that as well.
Can they intercede in the counting or anything that goes on?
They are there to watch, not to interject and get their hands involved in the processing of the ballots at the end of the night.
And then election security. Can you explain how, I remember that I observed last time when we had to recount some ballots because one of the presidential candidates requested it. And I was amazed at the gigantic bags of ballots. How do you handle these ballots? We have a paper trail, is that correct?
That's correct. Wisconsin has a paper trail, so we have paper ballots, and those are inserted through our machines here in Door County. All of our municipalities are on the same voting machine, and that machine tallies and then prints out a end of the night results, and also transmits to the county so that the county can tally as a whole all of our municipalities into one. Election security is obviously a hot topic and has been for the past 4 years. It's never ending and it's always changing. But there's a lot that goes into security right from the start, even before you even know election is coming, right down to the end, and then storage of the ballots. So all of the ballots at the end of the night are put into those big blue bags, and they are locked and secured, and chain of custody goes along from start of election to finish, and those ballots are then brought to the county and secured in a storage area, depending on the election, anywhere from 90 days up to 22 months.
So I would assume that maybe for the presidential election they're kept longer, maybe.
That would be correct. Federal elections require them to be stored for 22 months. So yes, this November's will be almost 2 years from now before those can be destroyed.
And then the absentee ballots, for instance, if I decide to vote absentee and I mail mine in, which I plan on doing, when they hold them, they don't start counting my absentee ballots or anybody else's until that morning. Is that correct?
That's correct. The clerks cannot process absentee ballots until election day. So when the polls open at 7, they can begin their processing of the ballots that came in through the mail or were voted in person absentee. And those hopefully are processed, by 8 o'clock at the close of polls. And if they're not, they can continue until they've got those processed on election day. So generally, we have experienced very good results with our municipalities who are able to process during the day. They plan for that. A lot of them have specific poll workers that are dedicated just to processing those absentees, so they can work them in and get them done during election day. So those are all going to be tallied, opened, and run through the machines and tallied as one as in our election day numbers.
So they look at the envelope when it arrives just to be sure that everything on the outside is okay before they file it away for election day. Is that correct? So that's how they know that, the witness didn't put down their address or that kind of thing.
That's correct. They are glancing at those when they receive them, and they are doing their very best to catch any errors that might throw that absentee ballot into a rejection pile. That would be basically what they are assuring, is that the voter's name and address is on it, the voter has signed it and dated it, and the voter has had a witness sign and put their full address, including their fire number, street, road, city, state, and zip code. That is a full address. Those are the items that need to be on that certificate envelope in order for that ballot to be processed and counted on election day. So the clerks are glancing at those and doing their very best to catch any of them that might have missed something, and then get a hold of that voter to correct those ballot envelopes so that they can be counted. Of course, that goes into request your absentee ballot early and return it early. Don't wait until the week before to request, and it's hard then to get those errors corrected. The voter would have obviously till 8 o'clock on election day to make those corrections, but it's hard to contact that voter and get those corrected the closer we get to election day.
Now, one of the things that we've been trying to help, and I think the clerks have too, perhaps you live alone and you have an absentee ballot and you really need a witness. Probably your first thought should be, does somebody deliver groceries? You could sign it and stick it out on the porch and let the person witness it and leave it there. Do you have a caregiver? Anybody can witness as long as they're a Wisconsin citizen. That's correct. For instance, if my caregiver lives in Nassau and I live in Sturgeon Bay, that's okay for somebody from Nassau to sign it because they're a Wisconsin resident. Is that
Yes,
correct?
they are able to sign. You do not have to have a witness that lives in your same municipality. You can have a witness that, yes, resides anywhere.
Anywhere in Wisconsin. So if you need a witness, think of the people that may help you with some difficulties. Maybe somebody delivers meals and you could slide it outside and let them do that. You could try and sign it that way. If you still have a problem, you could call the league. Could they also call the municipal clerk to see if they have a list of people who would come?
They certainly can contact the municipal clerk to see if there are any available volunteers that are willing to come out. A neighbor, a relative, also, great contacts to get in touch with to be your witness.
Right. And for that reason, if you haven't gotten or asked for your absentee ballot, please do it immediately because it's got to get to you, and it may be several days before you actually meet up with somebody or have somebody in your area who can help you. So doing that, once again, early really helps everybody. But the witness thing, and one of the things about the witness address slot is it's not very long, so it'd be easy to leave something out, I think.
It is. The one thing that the clerks can do, if it's just something where they're missing the state and zip, say, and it's a recognizable address for the clerks, they can complete that for the voter. They're not going to necessarily have to send that back to the voter to have them complete. However, if it's just maybe the witness signed their name and there is no address at all, that's where it's going to end up coming back to the voter because you simply don't know an address. But there are some things that the clerk will be able to fix, some small things, a zip code missing, a state missing, even if it was a Sturgeon Bay address and Sturgeon Bay is missing, the clerk will be able to fix that on their end of things. So no fretting over that. It's more the bigger things, forgot to sign or forgot an address completely.
Can you think of anything else we haven't covered, Jill, as far as voting? I think probably the most important thing is, please, if you haven't requested your absentee ballot, do so now. If you're not sure about how to go about that, you're not sure who your clerk is, you can always call the league. As I say, the number is 920-495-6206. Or you can call Jill at the county building. She's our county clerk. And how about your telephone number?
Yep, county clerk's telephone number is 920-746-2200. The one thing to keep in mind when requesting an absentee ballot, it is going to require that you include a copy of your photo ID. So whether you're on the myvote.wi.gov website and you can upload an ID, otherwise you will need a photocopy of an ID. I know we ran into that back in April. How do I get that copy? A lot of people were using banks or some caregivers who were able to take that and get copies. So that's an important key piece, is that you can't just call. An absentee ballot does have to be requested in writing in some form or fashion, whether that is online at the MyVote website, an email to the clerk, a handwritten request to the clerk. Any of those ways does have to include a photo ID.
And usually somebody may be able to help you, but you can take a picture of your photo ID with an iPad or an iPhone, and as I recall, there's a spot where you can say touch ID and it automatically happens. Now you might have to be a little bit of a techie, and if your grandson doesn't live too far away, maybe he could do it out on the porch for you and hook you up on doing it. Or maybe there's a neighbor you could call who knows how to do that, and you could put your ID out on the porch and they would see that happens. Now if you don't have I think there's ways to do it, but call the league if you need help, and we'll try and help you. We'll figure it out. It's important that everybody votes.
Absolutely.
It counts.
It does count.
It does
Every
count.
vote counts.
Every vote counts, and it's a privilege that we have that other parts of the world may not have, to have as many choices as we do, and we need to take advantage of it. It's important for our democracy. Would you like to